The genesis of this video was the 2011 ITLP Leadership Conference. Last year there was a breakout session where we talked about what schools do to continue leadership. So after the program was over, we had a number of good ideas, but it was apparent to us that there was no place to put them all together. So this video is to cover what other schools are doing for continuing leadership on campus.
Everything is changing all the time. So it's changing in the organization, the technology is changing, and even the sort of sociology of how people get along and relate to each other is continually, and our understanding of that is continually changing. So anytime that we're not continuously learning, we're falling behind, and that makes us less effective. So continuous learning is probably the single most important thing, and we're also at a university. So university the home of ongoing learning, so it's just sort of part of our DNA.
I think the third reason we've discovered that it has power is that it creates a community of leaders that really spans across the university, and they can do things you can't order people to do. They can make things happen.
Many people do that through a 1 week long program or a 1.5 week long program, but what we do is separate the teaching so that there's a time in between where people can go back to their institutions, practice what they've learned, knowing full well that they're going to be accountable for doing something with that.
Here are some programs that have been successful on other campuses.
Part of establishing a leadership program across the University of Illinois was to try to develop a common vocabulary, a way that we could work together speaking the same language and then use that vocabulary to develop the principles that work across the organization. The leadership program that MOR put together allowed all 3 of our campuses and our central administration to work together in a cohort of 30 over a year.
We started, I still remember the date, it was May 16th, 2007, or 2008. And we met at a pizza place on campus, and I sort of laid out what I thought were the important tenets of doing this, building connections between people who are in distributed and central IT. It wasn't an apprentice program. It wasn't, we're looking for people who are going to become proteges. It was really peer coaching. And so we really tried to make that distinction. And it exploded. I think the timing was just right. It wasn't really anything that I did. I think I just picked a particularly relevant topic, and it was at a point in time where people were hungry for something like this. So within a matter of months, we had 50 people.
And now we have the Illinois cohort. And each time we graduate more and more leaders, those take up a leadership role in developing leadership. So we have people interested in coaching and developing short, concise leadership programs that allow people who are never been associated with MOR to feed into a leadership environment.
And I invited 5 people who I was particularly close to that I interacted with on campus. Some were in central IT, some were in departmental. And I said, you know, let's see if we can pair up, find people who are, if you're in central, find somebody in distributed, and vice versa, and let's form a group and follow the tenets of peer coaching that I and several of the other people who were in my cohort learned through ITLP. Our CIO at the time, Sally Jackson, started what was called IT at Illinois, which was a big initiative to try to, part of it was to build connections between central IT and distributed IT. And peer coaching was used as an exemplar of a program that was doing that sort of thing. So suddenly I had people coming to me, not me going out and having to build connections with people who were coming to me.
Part of establishing a leadership program across the University of Illinois was to try to develop a common vocabulary, a way that we could work together speaking the same language and then use that vocabulary to develop the principles that work across the organization.
What we've done at Iowa to keep the momentum going from the ITLP is there's regular meetings where we can get together and meet up with other alumni from the classes, as well as just having some common verbiage and ideas that we can share when we're in meetings together, or even planning things. That really helps out to have that common jargon that we can use.
Yeah, so building the community across Stanford, I think having people use a common language and being able to use some of the same methodology and opportunities for learning helps people communicate more effectively. And we've actually leveraged that into the number of programs we have, so that I know that some of the folks that are attending it from my group, we're talking about the same terms, like getting on the balcony, or hey, what's the important versus immediate, and just using common language helps build that community.
Clearly, when you have people from different sides of the fence, or however you want to characterize it, that share domain language, that's already a big step in terms of getting them to work together. More than that, though, we actually share common goals. We share a common philosophy in terms of leadership, in terms of the notion that leadership isn't attached to titling, leadership is attached to a set of behaviors. And so getting people to actually work together has been fantastic.
At the University of Illinois, we had several graduating cohorts from MOR, and they were interested in pushing the lessons learned further, faster to the rest of the campus. So we created an IT leadership workshop, a 3-day workshop over the course of 3 months, where participants get just a hint of what MOR delivers in their full program.
I think the greatest example I've seen of that is the IT Leaders Workshop at the University of Illinois. It's a multi-day workshop. We adopt and adapt some of the lessons from MOR to customize them for the Illinois environment. And I think in many ways it's become kind of a feeder program almost for the MOR program. But it's really elevated the conversation on campus, and I think gotten people to step up into those leadership roles. And even in small kind of sideways, one of the things that we've seen is that people have become better facilitators because they volunteer to help with that workshop program, and it continues this conversation, it continues the engagement, it just gets people basically to be better leaders.
Our workshop is taught by graduates of the MOR ITLP program. The curriculum, while it's not the same curriculum, is based on a lot of the lessons learned from the ITLP program. The Illinois cohort that just graduated at our Springfield campus is totally energized. They came out of the program chomping at the bit. We have several of them who want us to expand our leadership workshop and want to help by helping us set up a program in our Chicago campus as well as our Champaign campus.
I know that Indiana has a boot camp, and they utilize that boot camp to put as many people as possible through the program. Indiana was one of the early participants in bringing people in from the edge into the program and making it a 1IU IT program and making sure that the leadership program was an opportunity for all.
Higher education is at a point of disruptive change, and the University of Michigan is no exception. There are very challenging economic times in the state that has led to a decrease in financial support. There are demands from the public for a higher level of accountability and lower student debt, and technology is introducing new challenges in the way we deliver instruction and conduct research. There has never been a stronger need for leaders that can lead through this disruptive change and take the industry to the next generation of teaching and learning and innovation. Next Gen Michigan is the University of Michigan's initiative to move to a new generation of technology and technology services. We are consolidating commodity and infrastructure IT support so that from the savings that we achieve, we can reinvest in leading edge technologies that research universities need for the next generation of students that we will be training.
Minnesota's IT Leadership Alliance group came about as a result of the IT Leaders program. We had IT directors, obviously, for a long time, and they had been meeting together and working together as IT directors and receiving information from the central organization. But then our president asked for an Advancing Excellence initiative. And so what is Advancing Excellence in IT? And we had a number of recommendations come out of that effort, one of which was to develop leadership in our IT directors, that they are a highly collaborative group. How might they work more together to leverage that expertise for behalf of the whole university? I, along with another colleague, had previously been in an ITLP Advanced Leaders Program. So we knew the value firsthand of what it had done for us professionally in our leadership journey, as well as personally. And we then shared what we had learned and what other cohorts had learned when they were the external ITLP. So we then contracted with MOR for an internal a local cohort. The number of people that were part of that were about 30. Our IT is distributed about 1/3 central, 2/3 distributed at the University of Minnesota. So we constructed the group accordingly, about 10 people from the internal organization, 20 representing other academic and administrative units and their IT directors. But it was through that 8 months of the ITLP local program that they started having more reflective dialogue, inquiring, learning more about what each other provided, and really wanting to be a leaderly, collaborative, shared leadership force at the University of Minnesota. So they renamed themselves IT Leadership Alliance at that point.
Well, the IT Leader Alliance is something that was sort of an offshoot of the work we did in ITLP, although it had its genesis before we ever came to this program. It grew out of a regular meeting that our CIO initially held for all of the IT directors around the university, and we converted that into a forum that was led by the IT directors themselves. So we went to the CIO and we suggested that it would be more effective if we were the ones who were setting the agenda and leading the meetings. And he concurred. He felt, we felt that this was a way to increase the adoption of common good solutions, which was one of the objectives of this meeting. And he concurred, and we then took the initiative, and we've been through, I think, 4 or 5 years now of conducting this leadership alliance, and it has evolved from a situation where we were simply talking about things that we wanted from the central IT organization, or things that were working but could have worked better, to an environment where we're together with the central IT organization and collaboratively amongst ourselves. We are looking at strategic issues. We're looking at how we can solve service-related problems together. And we're working with our new CIO to identify the best way to build IT governance across the entire university.
There are many benefits from the IT Leadership Alliance working in close partnership with the central IT organization. Initially, it was a collaboration for what are the services that are shared? What are those agreements? And so we got to learn much more about each other through working together, and got to articulate what these services would be. More importantly, as the group continued and we would have new initiatives at the university, they are the most important part of making things happen for the whole. For example, we rolled out Google as our email, our common calendaring, and the apps. We would not have been able to do this without them. They led the deployment across, each person across his or her unit. The IT rationalization effort that we have done. In a number of cases, universities have hired outside groups to do this. In the case, because of the IT Leadership Alliance, they were able to say, we can do this. We need to know as a whole what that university IT footprint is. And so they developed the service categories, they developed the surveys, they gathered the information, and in less than 6 months did an IT rationalization effort. So we now have that inventory, and now we are working from it. And the next steps, the groups, the initiatives, are largely articulated through their collective leadership.
We've been really fortunate as CIC5 to continue to stay together. We've done things through email, through coaching, sharing of our leadership journeys, sharing lessons learned, and that's been really beneficial to get an outside perspective from folks in other universities who are having very similar things happening on their campus. The additional perspectives lets you think about what's going on for you, and then taking those things to figure out if they might work in your space.
There's 3 programs at Stanford. One is the Leadership at Stanford. That's for up-and-coming executives and helps them, I think it's kind of an abbreviated program geared for an executive level. There's the ITLP for IT leaderships, and that's kind of the multi-site program where you basically visit a number of universities around the United States, and I found that especially valuable for myself. The third program we've got is the Stanford Technical Leadership Program, STLP, and that's for either individual contributors or junior managers, and I think it's geared to a much abbreviated program, and it's on campus, so it's their peers.
Stanford Technical Leadership Program came about when we realized that this leaderful community or IT community could be expanded beyond just the folks that had been in the ITLP. So we had a group of people that we saw as maybe technical leads or managers, maybe not ready for ITLP, maybe they were ready for ITLP and they simply did not want to travel and go to all the different universities. We saw it as an opportunity, well, if we could bring more on campus and do a program that was specific to Stanford, we could simply expand this community of this network of a shared language and opportunity at Stanford, and it's turned out exactly that way. The Stanford Technical Leadership Program is producing all kinds of new opportunities for the IT community at Stanford to get together on issues that, frankly, we didn't bother or didn't have the sort of capacity or bandwidth, didn't feel like we did in the past. There's a facilitation component to the sort of shared learnings that we have in the leadership program, and that's really brought us together in ways that we didn't imagine when we started.
So what we've done is we've had a number of cohorts get together. We've actually invited all of the previous attendees to any of the Stanford MOR programs, the Stanford Leadership at Stanford, the STLP and ITLP. And we asked them to come together and we brainstormed on ideas that we could do to solve some of the low-hanging fruit issues we've got around campus. And we actually used the STLP on campus, did some brainstorming during that session, and actually came up with a number of different tasks that we went off and handled. One was creating a website for researchers, IT for research. Another one was just creating a list of all the IT people on campus. And the third one was actually expanding on that. So on the next cohort that went through STLP, they actually developed an unconference based on the people that were attending the previous one and had developed a list of users around campus. And we think that we want to leverage that for the next set of folks and figure out what else we can do above and beyond that.
I think what we can learn from other universities is invaluable. And most recently, I had the opportunity to meet with Nancy Ware from Stanford. And we flew her out from Stanford for a 2-day meeting at NYU to talk about their Stanford Technical Leadership Program. And as a result of those 2 days of meeting with Nancy and learning about STLP, NYU decided to also launch an NYU TLP program this fall. So we're very excited.
At Iowa, we've put together a group called the Leadership Development Steering Committee. That committee has been charged by our CIO, and the group gets together every 2 weeks and looks at ways we can develop leaders on campus. We go out and ask the leaders to bring ideas to the group. We sponsor those activities, and we try to continue leadership in many ways.
Iowa has a steering committee to help continue developing and building our strengths and assets, and from that There's the What's on Your Mind program. There's a series of different leadership regular meetings that you can go to. Leading Ladies, our cohort continues to meet. There's also several icebreaker sessions. There's a variety of different resources, and there's also the SharePoint website where there's articles that are posted regularly so you can continue to grow. There's a list of coaches that are local that you can use as a resource.
A group of us also enjoy going to the Leading Ladies lunch. We meet monthly, and it's just a very informal, casual conversation, but I always walk away feeling supported, and usually I have a few new tips on things I want to try.
I think Iowa has done a great job creating communities and building on the mutual effort, mutual respect that it has garnered. And I appreciate the chance to join groups that I might not have had access to before, and it's opened a lot of doors.
There's been several new groups getting together after having our graduation already just this spring to try and build new communities around the ideas from ITLP. But I think even more importantly, there's a lot of discussion and really an openness to bring those same ideas to existing communities on campus. So the IT leaders groups have really tried to bring that out across not just the central IT units, but to the units across campus that are doing similar work.
There are a lot of other programs that we want to start as a grassroots initiative, and so I'm contemplating now, okay, now what other idea would I want to launch and help get started using some of the same principles of starting things with a grassroots approach.
Thinking about what you've heard from all the other schools, is there anything you can bring back to your campus? And the challenge to you is, how can you continue leadership development at your school? If you'd like more information, you can visit the following website.